Okay, JavaScript Ajax. Ajax is a way to open a separate file, a text file or a data file in your HTML file or your PHP file or whatever without reloading the page. Usually when you want to update content from another file, you're going to end up like opening a whole new HTML page. With Ajax, you can like refresh a small area of your page using data from a separate file without using an iframe or something. It's pretty nifty. Okay, so Ajax stands for Asynchronous JavaScript and XML. That's kind of a weird name for it because you can also use JSON or text, not just XML. You can't just open a file on your desktop like you've been doing when you're messing with Ajax. You can't use that like file : protocol. It has to be a proper server protocol. So you can either upload stuff to a host you have, so you have like an HTTP or HTTPS protocol, or you can use like a localhost protocol, just running a server locally on your machine using something like XAMPP or MAMP if you're on a Mac or something. So if you're on Windows, or I guess this is a cross-platform, you might Google XAMPP, XAMPP, and this is the link that'll come up. Just go to download and download for your platform. You may have to disable an antivirus or something like that to get it running if it throws a warning or an error when you try to open it. I just hit start on these two guys, Apache and MySQL. You probably don't even need to run SQL for this, just Apache. So as long as you have a server running in the background like Apache, you should be good. Then go to localhost and you can run your files. Now again, you can't just run your files from your desktop. If you're on Windows, your localhost files should be under C, XAMPP, htdocs, and anything under htdocs will open. So I have like my Ajax folder here. That's my Ajax folder here under localhost. So once you run your server, you should be able to open your files. So that's kind of a long, annoying intro. XAMPP can kind of be a pain to open your first time, but once you have it running, you should be good from there. Usually I just dive right into the native JavaScript, the vanilla JavaScript stuff, and not mess around with jQuery. Since the code for Ajax is kind of long and annoying, I am going to show you the jQuery first, then we'll go into the native JavaScript versions, and then we'll come back to the jQuery afterwards, and maybe it'll mean a little bit more. So using jQuery, make sure you load jQuery, and then just you can run it like this on document ready. .ajax, our URL is this text file. All this text file is just says hi baby, that's all. And then once the request is successful, run this callback with the variable result, and we're just going to grab the test, the div ID test, and then replace whatever HTML is in there with the result. So it's just going to say, it should for a second show this Latin placeholder text, and then it'll swap in our result file, which just says hi baby. And that's Ajax. So I'm just going to refresh this guy, and it swapped it in before the Latin even showed. That's how fast it was. So here it says hi baby. You could do the same thing. Instead of using a text file, you can use a JSON file. JSON is JavaScript object notation. It's pretty simple. It's just something that looks like this. So this is like curly brackets, JavaScript object style, and then we have some paired string values here. Dog name is Ingrid, comma, dog name, dog breed is German Shepherd. So that's a gist of JSON. The only difference in our HTML file here in our JavaScript is that we're going to say URL is data.json now, that different file, and we're using the data type now of JSON. Once we grab our result, we can get into the JSON result object by doing like result.dogname. That will give us whatever value is here. So like result.dogname is going to give us Ingrid, and then result.dogbreed will give us German Shepherd. And here's where we're using like result.dogbreed. And there we are. The Latin flashed for a second, and then our new data loaded in. We can do the same with XML. XML is kind of like HTML, but you can use like custom tags. So here we're using these whatever tags we want, like books and book, title, publisher. So it's just like JSON, it's just a way to pass information to pass data. Once we get a result, once we load that file, we can kind of navigate it not like a JavaScript object, like when we were using JSON, but more just using like jQuery selectors as if it were HTML. And we can grab like the tags and then the text inside the tags and stuff like that. And here it's loading our title and author from our XML file. Okay, so now we can get into the native JavaScript version of what we just did. It's definitely longer and more annoying, but it's good to know. So on window on load, we're going to run our load file function. Here's our load file function. We're going to open up our Ajax XML HTTP request object. So unless you're using old Internet Explorer browsers, this is what you're going to do. Once you have that variable that is that new object, you can use properties of that variable. So I mean, most of what we're doing here is we're creating the object, we're opening, and we're sending the object. And we also have this, we're attaching this event listener. So we're saying, hey, whenever the state changes, whenever the ready state, which tells us how ready the object is, like in what stage of the sending and receiving, or sending the request and receiving the response, we have to keep checking to see what state that whole process is in. So every time that state changes, check what number it is. 4 is after you get the response back, and then status 200 means it came back okay. So we just keep checking the ready state change, and whenever the request is back, then we can use that response data. And the response data is just going to be this text again, hi baby. And so we're just going to alert the response text in this case. Oops. So there's our Latin, and then here's our alert. Okay. Now instead of using an alert, we're going to use regular native JavaScript to grab the element, the div ID test, and then swap in the response for the Latin placeholder text. So there's our placeholder text, and then it swaps in our result text. Okay. I don't know why you would want to do this, but with this XML HTTP request object, when you open it, the third parameter can be true or false. It's true by default, so you don't have to put it if that's what you want. But false means you can do it synchronously instead of asynchronously. So asynchronous means while we're waiting for our response to come back, we can do other stuff like keep loading the page or something like that. So there's no reason to do it synchronous, which would stop the page from loading until the request comes back. But you can if you want by using the false parameter here. Okay, so if you are using IE 5 and 6, which is super old now, but if you need to support those, you still have your request equals new XML HTTP request object, but we're going to put a bunch of code before that. So before that, we're going to double check if window.xml HTTP request is undefined. If it is, which it would be in IE 5 and 6, then we're going to try to actually rename the window.xml HTTP request object to something different. And it's actually, we're going to try to rename it to this ActiveX object, which is what IE 5 and 6 did instead of the proper XML HTTP request object. It's kind of this weird inside baseball stuff here. First, you want to try version 6. If you don't have that, then try version 3. And if you don't have that, then try it without any version. You can read this Microsoft blog post, which explains all the inside stuff behind that. So anyway, on Chrome, this is going to work exactly the same, but that will also now work on IE 5 and 6. Okay. Now we were using some kind of spaghetti-ish code there before. We're going to make it a little bit more modular. Instead of saying load file, open parenthesis, close parenthesis, and then defining the URL inside the function, we're going to pass in the URL as a parameter here. So we're going to also here load file takes in the variable of URL. So that will be the same. And then we're going to make it even more modular by saying load file takes the URL, and this is the callback function. So instead of defining the callback function right inside here, where we're going to say, grab that div and swap in the response text, we're going to separate it into a function called callback. And up here is the function. We're actually going to call it replace text. It takes the variable of text, and it does the same thing. It grabs that div and swaps in the new text. It just makes our code more modular, easy to read, easy to change in the future, that kind of stuff. The last thing we're going to do is double check for the content type. This makes it a tiny bit more robust. So we're saying, hey, once the request comes back, grab the type of the response. So we're saying var type equals request.get response header. So check the header for the content type. If the content type has text in it, the word text in it, then open it as text. So this is that same one using that text file. It just says hi baby or whatever. Now we are going to get into the alternatives to text. Here we have our JSON. So in this case, we're saying if the type happens to be application.json, then use this JSON parse request response text. And our JSON again looks like this. And this is the native JavaScript version that'll do this. It'll grab our book title. Did I do that right? Yeah, I believe I did. Oh no, so that was actually the XML version, which is more or less the same thing. Here's the XML version. We're saying, hey, if the response is XML, then and if the type has the index contains the string XML and the request is response XML, then use our XML callback, which looks like this in native JavaScript. We're going to get the different elements and grab the first element and then grab the inner HTML. Okay, so now that you've seen all that, we're going to go back to the jQuery real quick. So this is the jQuery one that just gets plain text. And you can appreciate now that this is pretty small and pretty clean compared to all that nasty code we had before. This is also cross-browser because jQuery is wonderful like that. Here's the JSON version of our Ajax request using jQuery. And then here is the XML version using jQuery. Lastly, we are going to get into JSON-P. So in this case, all we've been doing is taking and opening a file from the same server. Like in this case, they have to be on the same computer in the same folder. But Ajax can also grab stuff from another server, cross-domain, which is handy, if you're trying to grab data from something like Wikipedia or something like that, and then do a search for Wikipedia stuff, and then open the search results on your web page or your web app. Ajax does all kinds of wonderful stuff like that, but it's a little complicated because you can't do a regular call. You have to do a JSON-P call, which pretty much creates a new script tag and gets the data it needs from decoding variables in the query string like this. So this is an example that grabs a random bit from Wikipedia. So it's pretty cool. There it is. So there's a random Wikipedia thing. This code all came from these links. You can check them out. It's kind of long and involved. I don't feel like getting all into it. But know that it's actually not that tricky at the base. We're creating a script tag using JavaScript. We're decoding our response, and we're just replacing it in as our new element on the page. You can Google it and mess around, but it's not too much more tricky than what we've been doing. So that's our Ajax vid.